Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. In this second part video, please watch the first part by the way, I'm going to talk about the differences between Vancouver and Toronto when it comes to food, but specifically non-Asian food. If you want my in-depth comparison between Asian food, go watch the first video first and then come watch this one. So with that said, let's get right into it. So non-Asian food would be anything that's not Asian. So let's start with Western food. That's the easiest. When I say Western, I just mean your American and Canadian food. There's a lot of chain restaurants that I go to often. So let's start with that. In both cities, you have the same chains, and then there's several chains that are different between the two. But the conclusion, the TLDR that I'll tell you is that Toronto has more types of chains than Vancouver. But if you're really gonna get into the weeds of these chains, they're all the same. They all serve the same stuff. They all serve burgers, yam fries, steak, and they all have roughly the same ambience. I'm sorry, hopefully this doesn't offend anyone. Don't get me wrong, I love all these chains, but they're all around. You know what? If you want me to be, here you go. So in both cities, we've got the Joey's, we've got the Cactus, we've got Earl's, and I'm missing one, but let's just go with those three. And I'm gonna say from a Vancouver perspective, and this is slightly different in Toronto, but from a Vancouver perspective, Earl's has the best food, but in terms of ambience, mid, and they're old-fashioned, and their drinks are really superb, but their food is probably the selling point there. Cactus has not so good drinks, really good ambience and vibes, and mid food. I would say their food is generally mid, but they have this dish and one dessert that is out of this world. Whenever I go to Cactus, for the last 20 years of my life, the only dish I order is the prawn ravioli. It's probably not called that, but it's gonna be the prawn ravioli. Best dish ever, you must get that at Cactus. The other thing you must get at Cactus is the dessert. They have this individual baked apple pie. I'm not even a desserts person and I go to Cactus just to eat that. Sorry, is that Cactus? That might be Joey's. Never mind the dessert part. That dessert, the individual baked apple pie, that might be Joey's. I think that's Joey's. Sorry. So for Cactus, the prawn ravioli, that's that. And then Joey's, I would say, is the best overall because it has the vibes of Cactus, way better than Earl's, so similar to Cactus, but it has almost as good food as Earl's, pretty much the same as Earl's. So Joey's is the best, in my opinion. Now, in Toronto, it's a little different. Toronto's Cactus, I would say, is really good. The one in downtown, if it's still there. It has the best vibes. The rooftop opens up. Again, I just get the prawn ravioli there. Drinks, I said they're not as good, cocktails in particular, right? But if drinks are not good, just get a beer, right? Find the tap list, find the beer you like, get a beer, you're good to go. So I love the Toronto Cactus. The Joey's is again, whatever I said about Joey's here applies to Joey's in Toronto. Toronto Joey's. Joey's is always really good. Fun fact, my favorite thing to get at Joey's, both places, is the steak and sushi combo. And that's right, sushi. They actually were one of the first to pioneer sushi at a Western chain restaurant. And actually, it's pretty decent. Highly recommend getting that combo. It's a pretty good deal. And then finally, do you have Earl's in Toronto? Can someone tell me? I'm sure Toronto must have Earl's. I'm just drawing a blank when it comes to my experiences at Earl's. I'm pretty sure I've been to an Earl's. Anyway, same thing here. So I say chains, roughly the same. But the difference between Toronto and Vancouver is that Toronto has Jack Astor's, Kelsey's, Moxie's. The Moxie's is in both. But to be frank, there's only one or two Moxie's in Vancouver. It's a very small footprint. Whereas Toronto, there's Moxie's everywhere. Moxie's is, I gotta be careful here. Moxie's is the vibe is really good. Everything else is mid. And that's all I'll say about Moxie's. I do love, again, if somebody asked me to go to a restaurant just to chill, have some decent food, any of that chain will make me happy. I love all those chains. I don't have any beef with any chain. I love all of these chains. It's just that Toronto has more chains than Vancouver. All right, so let's move on to my favorite non-Asian cuisine of all time. And then after this, let's talk about my second favorite non-Asian cuisine of all time. And that one, huge difference between Toronto and Vancouver. So the first, my biggest one is Mexican food. Generally speaking, from here on out, I'm just gonna blanket stay. If you don't want to stay for the rest of this video, I'm just gonna tell you, Toronto is better for non-Asian food, period. Asian food, it's a very complicated matter. Go watch the first video. Non-Asian food, Toronto is better. Toronto is more multicultural than Vancouver, period. Vancouver is just Asian, too Asian. As a result of being too Asian, there's not enough of what I say culture here in Vancouver. Toronto is more cultured. You have just so many different cultures that have established their presence in Toronto, and as a result, you have their food. Mexican food is my number one favorite food outside of Asian cuisine. I love Mexican food, but as a result of eating too much Mexican food, I've been spoiled by really good tacos. And let me tell you, really good tacos, Toronto. Vancouver, I can't find. I live in downtown, and downtown alone, I can think of 4 places that have Mexican food and tacos. I've tried them all. They're all decent. Some are better than not. My favorite one is called, I can't pronounce it, I'm sorry, but I'm going to butcher it. La Mexicana something. Anyway, that's the best place. There's also a place on Davie Street that's pretty good. But Sally Lemon is really good in Vancouver. But Toronto, oh my god, Toronto has so much good Mexican food. I can't even, 7 Lives, if it's still there. And then Toronto, they used to have this taco fest, like a Mexican fest or taco fest in the summer. I used to go there all the time. So good. Toronto's Mexican food scene, way better. The second food that I love outside of Asian food, the second favorite one I would say I eat the most of is Spanish food. Spanish food, let me tell you, it breaks my heart to talk about this. Vancouver has no Spanish food. There's literally 3 restaurants that serve Spanish food in Vancouver. When you have so few competition, the quality is mid and they get away with it. So anyway, Toronto, way better and way more Spanish food. And when I talk about Spanish food, I like myself a really good paella, don't get me wrong, but Spanish food is more than just paella. If you've ever had really good grilled octopus, you'll know how good Spanish food can be. If you've had super good ceviche, you'll know. I can't find any of that. I can find decent paella here, not even incredible. Toronto, I can find crazy good paella, and I can find all these other dishes there. If you want to know my favorite restaurant that I've been recommending for all 15 years now, or at least that much time, Bar Isabel. Every person that has gone to Toronto from Vancouver, I've recommended this place. Does not disappoint. It's my favorite Spanish restaurant. I know it has bar in the name, and if you don't drink, don't be turned off. It's not a bar. It's a Spanish restaurant. If you do drink though, it's definitely really good because they have really good cocktails, they have really good wine. Just the vibe, the ambience, the food is so good. There's more Spanish restaurants in Vancouver that are, in Toronto that are really good, but that's all I list. In Vancouver, there's none. The place I go to most often is in downtown. It's called España, and they have a pretty good paella, but that's pretty much it. It's not bad. I like it, but it's again, I can compare with what I've had in Toronto. It's just not the same, just like Northern Chinese food in my previous video. And I know if you're watching this from Vancouver, you might be recommending me that place in Olympic Village-ish that opened up. I have yet to try that place. And as we speak, as I'm filming this video, and by the time I release this video, I would have already gone. But as I'm filming this in 2 or so days, I'm going to Como Taparia. So I'm really excited about that. But I don't have high hopes. I just feel like because there's so few Spanish restaurants, the 3 that I listed, those are the 3. It's just like you can get away with less. All right, so as for other non-Asian cuisines, we're getting to the point where it's like, out of video one was Asian food, and then in this video I've listed traditional Western food, and I mainly talked about chains, but I forgot to mention that when I talk about the chains, I talk about all the non-chain type Canadian and American restaurants that are emulating the chains. That's basically anything that serves pub style burgers and fries, and all the way from trashy pub to high-end place. I don't think it's worth your time to talk about high-end food, because high-end food exists in both. So let's quickly touch base back to Western food, but high-end food, because I think that this does deserve its own mentioning. So when I talk about high-end food, I'm talking about restaurants that are special occasion type. A lot of them are Spanish. So I'll list a couple. Toronto would be Canoe, for example. There's a couple other ones. There's one in Forest Hill or Rosedale-ish. I'll have to find the name. It's probably, if I can, I'll flash it up. Really, really good restaurants. No issues, but like I don't really know what to say about these places. They're for like 1-year anniversary, or they're for someone's birthday. Have some pasta or steak. It's very like, or some seafood. It's nothing crazy. You spend a lot of money and get a lot of good service and pay 25% tip, and that's pretty much it. I'm not really that, as you can see, that's not really my thing. Vancouver high-end restaurants would be anything from Global Group, so like sales and stuff. And you have like and Loophole, and the list goes on. Ancora, like crazy. Like I spend lots of money, get lots of good service, high-end, little pretentious steakhouses. No difference between the two. Both have abundance. I would say though the vibe in Toronto is generally more professional. And that's just the whole vibe of the city. Here, even though it's high-end, it's more chill still. So that's something you gotta know. That's the difference between the two. Let's squeeze in one Asian thing that I just forgot to mention in video one, and that is Izakayas. So back to Japanese food being slightly better here than Toronto. Go watch the first video. I forgot to mention that Izakayas are relatively the same between the two. The same Izakayas generally exist in both cities. So you've got your Kingyo group operating in both. You've got, but Gu is sort of called Kinka in Toronto. Apparently there's some drama and beef that caused that to happen, but essentially those two are the same. You've got a couple like Kintaro and a couple other izakayas in Nome. Nome is one of my favorite, by the way, in Toronto. Hashi Izakaya is one of my favorite in Toronto. Those are North Toronto. Those, you probably don't know about those. And in Vancouver, I would say Zakushi. So you got Zakushi in both. So I would say like a lot of izakayas in both cities with 2 or 3 groups operating, group restaurants operating in both. And then you've got niche type, you've got more in Toronto just because independent people can open their own. Whereas in Vancouver, it's really dominated by the 3 main groups, Gu, Kingo, and Zakushi group. I would say, you know, down in Vancouver downtown, you've got what, 4 or 5 Gus, and you've got like Kingo type restaurants and 2 Zakushi restaurants, all in downtown. Downtown is literally like an hour you can walk all around downtown, and you're telling me you have like izakayas that owned by 3 companies. So that's Vancouver for you. Toronto is, there's probably a lot of izakayas, but less so concentrated in a geographic area, and less so concentrated in 3 companies that own all the izakayas. So that would be the primary difference. In terms of quality, it's the same. Sorry to diverge. Anyway, back to the video 2, non-Asian food. The other non-Asian foods, I was trying to say, I don't eat that much of it. We've gotten up to a point where I'm talking about the 0.1% of the time when I don't eat any Asian food, and I don't eat Mexican food, and I don't eat Western food, and I don't eat Spanish food. This is literally 0.1% of the time. So I'm not going to pretend like I'm an expert. I'm just going to say, generally speaking, the same rule applies. Toronto is more culture. Toronto has more different cultures worth of food. Is one that I can probably think of that I eat quite a bit in both cities. Quite a bit, like that 0.1%, but to me, I don't know really like what to say about Ethiopian food. It's the same in both. It's this, like, I don't, if any of you are able to tell me what constitutes as good Ethiopian versus bad Ethiopian food, let me know. Whenever I eat Ethiopian food, it's always this platter of light curries, like Indian food, but lighter, on top of this sponge like with some extra spongy like some carbohydrate, and then you take that and you wrap some of the curry meats and veggies and eat it. It's pretty good, but I wouldn't say would say I prefer Indian food, Ethiopian food most times than not. And not just the food, I would say it's the service too. I just don't, whenever I go eat at Ethiopian restaurants, I just feel like the service is, I'm not going to say it's bad, but it's really not really normal. It's just going to say how it is. It's usually slower service, slightly less attentive, less expression. When I eat Indian food, it's normal. It's like going to a Joey's. It's very friendly, very talkative. They're super friendly people. If there's any Ethiopians here, let me know that I'm wrong. I'm sorry. Or maybe it's just cultural differences. So Ethiopian food is great. No difference between the two cities. And that concludes my summary of non-Asian foods with the exception of the izakaya. So thank you for tuning in for this two-part series. If you want me to dive deeper into any of these foods, let me know. I am very passionate about food. I've been posting on Facebook about food even before Instagram started, and then I've been a food influencer on Instagram for at least 8 years. So I can talk about food all day long. I probably missed a lot of things. I probably got a lot of things incorrect. As you can see, I don't have any script on both videos, so I am just going off of what's in my head. Please comment down below on your thoughts, and I'll see you in the next one. Also, I just want to mention that this two-part series is the part of an overall series where I want to talk about the difference between Vancouver and Toronto in every single aspect. And so this two-part was meant to be a one-part about food. In the other videos, I talk about differences like career, meeting friends, dating, transportation, and you name it. So please drop a like and give me some pointers and tips to help me become a better YouTuber and storyteller. Thank you very much.